Welcome to Every Night is Game Night, a proud member of the Dice Tower Network and the home of the Headspace Game Review. We are the podcast that helps you get your head in the game.
Yo, my peoples, what's up? Welcome back to Every Night is Game Night, the podcast that helps you get your head in the game. I am your host, Jason. Thank you so much for joining us. We have a hoot of an episode today. I brought a couple of friends over. They are recurring guests. I'm going to introduce them in just a second, but we're going to be talking about Marvel Champions, the hotness that is exploding all over the solo gamers guilds, all over just, anywhere you see cooperative gaming or thematic gaming, they are playing Marvel Champions. We're going to compare them to some products that are out now. We're going to compare it to Sentinels of the Multiverse. We're going to compare it to Marvel Legendary. And I got two friends who could not be more perfect to talk about this. This man, who I'm going to introduce first, has played Marvel Champions. It's only been out about 14 days. He's played it 27,000 times. It's amazing. I can't believe this guy's a machine. He is Brandt Sanderson from the Portal Gaming Podcast. Welcome back to the show, Brandt.
Yo, Jason's peoples, what's up?
Oh my God, that was...
Howdy, everybody. I'm the Brandt on the Portal Gaming Podcast, and yes, I have a problem. I am addicted to Marvel Champions.
And joining me, who is going to talk about all these different card games, he is here to talk specifically about Legendary. He owns every single piece of content there is for Legendary, and he's played Marvel Champions, and he's played all these other games. It is Steve from the One Stop Coop Shop. Welcome back to the show, Steve.
Thanks, Jason. Hi, my name's Steve. I've been playing Marvel for X number of years. No, I'm just kidding. So I feel like we'll talk about our addictions right now. So,
well, it's only the core set that's out right now. I mean, we're going to be getting packs and announcements and all sorts of stuff. There's only like a little bit announced, but I'm sure we're going to get tons of stuff coming along. So we are very excited to bring you this special episode. I know that I love doing these kind of deep dives, and we're going to be doing a bit of comparison. That's all we're going to be talking about today is Marvel and Sentinels and comic book games and all that good stuff. But first, we're going to get to Liz and the Liz We Trust segment. There is a non-zero chance she's talking about a comic book game, but let's see what she has in store for us now.
Hey gamers, this is Liz Davidson from Beyond Solitaire, and I'm here to encourage your Every Night is Game Night acquisition disorder. This week I want to talk about Hour of Need, the latest game from Blacklist that is designed by the Sadler brothers and that features the modular deck system. Hour of Need is a superhero game with original characters and set in an original universe. Think a more streamlined Sentinels of the Multiverse with a tactical component. Hour of Need is also the most affordable of the Sadler games to date. The base game is $65 and the all-in pledge is $109. If you're a fan of the Sadlers and their work, Hour of Need is having its own Hour of Need. Funding has stalled, and at the time of recording, the campaign is at $87,000 of the $100,000 needed to fund. If you're a fan of the modular deck system and of superhero games, check this one out before the campaign ends on November 26th. Happy gaming.
All right. Thank you very much, Liz. As usual, this is one of those cases in which I have zero idea what Liz is talking about. I really don't. But as we say, in Liz, we trust. All right, let us get to the meat of the episode. We are getting straight to the meat of the episode, which is Marvel Champions. So we are going to split up the discussion into a couple of discrete areas. But before I introduce those areas, I'm going to ask the person who's played Marvel Champions the most. You know who I'm talking about over here, right, Brent?
I know. You want me to describe the game?
Give us a quick rundown, because we are going to be getting into mechanics and all that stuff a little bit later. But quickly, please introduce the people to Marvel Champions, the living card game.
I feel like this is the easiest game to explain because in order to win, you have to defeat the villain. And
yes.
If you lose, it's because the heroes died or the villains pulled off their scheme, robbing the bank, blowing up the world, whatever it might be. That's the game.
That's it, the whole thing.
I guess it's important for people to know that in the core box, there's 5 heroes. There's She-Hulk, Captain Marvel, Iron Man, Spider-Man, and Black Panther. And there are 3 villains that you can fight: Rhino, Claw, and Ultron.
Yep, it is a living card game, which means you can deck construct, and we'll go into the how you do that deck construction as we get into the meat of the episode. But you will be putting together heroes. You'll be putting together different ways in which the heroes are fighting. When you actually get it to the table, you'll be able to play your cards and use cards to pay for other cards. Do this whole card play thing. I mean, if you want card play, this is the absolute game for you. And of course, we're going to be doing Rock'em Sock'em against the bosses. So because you guys are on my podcast, and because I am making a bigger and bigger deal about talking about the thematic headspace of basically any game that I review, I wanted to start there. I wanted to talk about, before we even get into mechanisms, I wanted to talk about where your head goes. What is your experience at the table when you are playing Marvel Champions? What is this game going for, and is it successful? So clearly in this game, it's trying to make you Spider-Man, and it's trying to make you Black Panther, and it's trying to put you in the space of the hero themselves, facing long odds and figuring stuff out, going against these dastardly villains and trying to foil their schemes and everything. Just from that very high imaginative level, Brandt, you've played this the most. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely trying for it. It's definitely there. It goes so far as cards say, if you take damage, and when it says you, it means you, Spider-Man.
Right.
So it does stuff like that. It definitely makes you feel like a hero. You're trying to figure out all these combos and things. I guess in terms of thematic headspace, what's going on, it's kind of representing that single, basically final battle of a comic book or a movie or whatever it might be. I mean, there's stages to it, so you could argue that it's kind of the 2 times they met, or that you're kind of following the villain, but it doesn't really give us any locations or
Right.
anything like that currently, environment or whatever. So it's really just going, kind of like you said, it's just that rock'em sock'em right at the end of the story. Who's going to win the final battle?
Which is very different from a Marvel, from an Arkham LCG. Arkham is the story-based game and everything, but it's so much more drawn out. Like you have locations, and you have to do this thing before you do this thing, before you do this thing, and there's a definite sense of flow and story and everything. Here, some people expected, because it's an LCG, and this is the LCG after Arkham, and Arkham did so well, that this was going to be kind of a redo of that. Not even close, at least from a thematic perspective. It is just boss fight after boss fight after boss fight. Right. Steve, what did you think? Do you think that the Marvel LCG was successful in delivering that kind of cinematic, grand battle type experience?
I mostly agree. So when I was thinking about this question a little bit more, I was trying to think, removing myself from the board game universe for a second, what do I think of when I think of the superhero world? What do I need to make me feel like I'm playing as a superhero? And so I came down to 5 things. 1, I have to feel powerful. I'm not feeling powerful, I'm not super. Pretty simple, right? And then 2,
which I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'll get back to your points in a second. You just hit right on the thing I was going to say, where in Marvel, you're super powerful. Everything works. In Arkham, you pull a -4 chit and it doesn't work, or you pull different things and it just puts you behind the 8 ball. That game. This game, there's none of that. No dice, no randomizer. If you play it and you tap it, it's gonna work.
Yeah, for sure. You have a lot of opportunities to do some really powerful moves you set up right. So that's definitely in Champions. So yeah, check that off my list. Cool. The other one's pretty simple, and that's just every superhero has to have an arch enemy or some big boss to go after. And that's really what the game's about. You're just going after the big boss, so check that off the list too. The other one I listed, which I don't think is in Champions, is I feel like in a lot of superhero stories, there's moral decisions and a need to protect the innocent. And it's not really in Champions at all. Maybe in a weird sense, you can think of the alter ego, the fact that it exists to hide your identity, to protect yourself from those close to you, but that's really a stretch. I'd probably not include that in here.
Right, so the wider comic book version, especially in Marvel, there's certain things Marvel doesn't do that other comic book companies do, but Marvel is a lot about big stark moral decisions and tension, and you're definitely not getting that here.
Exactly.
Rhino is clearly bad. Ultron is clearly bad.
Right.
Okay, So let's start. You would start to kind of get into mechanisms a little bit. Let's get into some mechanism talk. We'll definitely get back to the strategic and the thematic headspace as we read it forward. But yes, I think that all of us are in agreement that it does make you feel powerful, and it does make you feel like you're in whatever character it is. And actually, I will say a little bit more. They do a lot for the decks do a lot, even though you're constructing the decks. You still feel like Iron Man in some way. Like, you put your suit together, your boots and your helmet and everything. And once they're together, like, you tap your boots to fly. And then you need the flight ability in order to shoot your hand laser. And then you need to, if you're flying, then you can use your scanner to throw at the villain. Like, that's all on the cards. And you could just kind of like get into that sense. If you're Spider-Man and something's coming at you, you can play a card and dodge out of the way. They really did a lot to put you not just in the thematic headspace of generic hero, but each individual hero. So, Brandt, I'm actually curious, before we get on to mechanism talk, you've played so much, do you even see that stuff anymore? Or does it disappear behind what you're doing?
No, I definitely do. So I think one thing that's important to know on that aspect is the way you can construct the decks is you can use each of the heroes. And what you're talking about, part of the part that's so genius with what they did in my mind was each hero comes with 15 dedicated cards that you must include. Then they have these 4 aspects, justice, protection, aggression, and leadership. And you can shuffle any of those into your deck one at a time. So you can be any one of those. I could be Justice Spider-Man or Protection Spider-Man. And
justice means like harrying the boss. It means like stopping what he's doing, interrupting attacks and everything. And protecting is like, protecting your allies. And support means like you're buffing your allies and you're, buffing the mini allies that come out, like these little side minions and everything. So the decks feel very different, even though you're playing Iron Man,
Yeah, and so you say that, and I was just playing yesterday, and I was playing as Iron Man. I think it was Justice Iron Man. And I was playing, and Brian, my co-host on the podcast, was there while I was kind of finishing up, and I was talking to him, and I was like, boy, I really felt like Iron Man, and for me, it's the Robert Downey Jr. Iron Man, and I'm thwarting the villain so much, I'm not doing damage. It's like, hey, look over here, oh, nope, stop doing, and all that kind of stuff he does, where he's kind of like trailing, he's or kiting, I think would be like the old RPG term or whatever. He's just kiting the villain to have time go on until somebody can blast him, for big damage kind of thing. And I felt that in my, whatever it is, 35th play. I have no idea. I stopped tracking. Well, I'm not lying. It's somewhere up there.
Definitely a lot. So actually, I was going to go into villains first, but you can't avoid this game without talking about the heroes. Let's just go at the heroes. So we're starting to talk about the hero deck construction, right? So there's 3 things that go into the elements of making like a 40 to 50 card deck. So there's your 15 cards, which are your guy, or your lady, or whatever you're picking. And then there's I think however many cards you want as the protector and the aggressor, like depending on what play styles. Basically, you're mixing up your play style, whether you're going to play as an attacker or a support person going in the back. And any of the heroes can kind of jibe with what are the other decks. Pretty cool that way. And then there's a basic thing, which really just gives you more card draw, gives you more resources, gives you more access to be able to operationalize the better cards in your deck. So kind of you mash these 3 things in. There's not much variability in the basic game, especially if you play 4 players. You're basically using every card almost. But you can see where there's going to be so much more coming down the pike. And then when it comes to actually playing the cards on the table, there's kind of 2 moments you have to be aware of turn by turn. So the first is the cards each have a cost. So you can call it, 1, 2, 3, or 4, or 0. Maybe, and they refer to resource icons that are on the bottom of other cards. So like San Juan, like Race for the Galaxy, you are paying cards to play other cards. Creates really interesting decisions where it's like, okay, I have all these cards, and they may be good, but I really want to play Nick Fury, who's worth 4, and he only have a hand of 6, so it's like, okay, bye-bye other cards, and play Nick Fury right now. Or, dribble out, cards here and there. That's the kind of strategy of landing the cards on the table. And once they're on the table, it's very much like Magic or some of these other games where it's like, okay, you tap a card and I have a whole bunch of actions available to you. So 2 moments, playing the cards and then actually making things happen on the board. Okay, I mean, I don't really have a specific question about that. Steve, I'll ask you to chime in. Is that fun? And is that like effective? And did it do what it wanted you to do, which is like challenge you, give you, strategic decisions, give you that combo ability? What'd you think of it all?
I thought they did a really good job setting up the play space or the design space they have for this game, where you talked about the 3 different types of cards or 3 different categories of cards you put in a deck. Like the basic cards or colorless cards basically are kind of like your tier 1 cards. They're pretty low powered. And then you get an aspect card, which you can only choose one aspect, and that's kind of a tier 2. It's a little more powerful, but then your superhero cards are by far the most powerful in the deck. And that just seems really accurate and thematic. It makes you want to always have your heroes shine out of whatever cards you're putting in the deck. So for that, I think they did a really good job there. And then laying out the cards, I did play Magic before, so it's very easy to understand how that plays. I thought it was kind of interesting how they added this consequential damage, they call it, for the allies. And I think this is kind of looking at Lord of the Rings in a sense where it's possible in Lord of the Rings to have a huge army, and it kind of makes sense that in some cases you would have an army in that game, because obviously the armies back then, or there's obviously armies in that story.
Back then.
Alternate English history. She wasn't making no fiction. Get out of here.
So, but yeah, it's cool how they made them okay, he's gonna come, they're gonna help, and they're going to disappear generally.
So when we're talking about allies, it's actually like you can play Spider-Man, you can play the main people, but you can also have individual cards in your deck that have like smaller heroes. So you could summon Tigra, you could summon Mockingjay, or these like lead heroes. Unless you know the comics, you'll never have a chance of knowing who these people are. Except for the Hulk. The Hulk's I don't know how I feel about the Hulk being reduced to an ally card, but oops.
And
so
Nick Fury.
He doesn't. Okay, he has a comic book, but it's always stunk, and he's never going to get his own movie. So I can see that. And if anybody's going to be Gandalf in the game, then it's going to be Nick Fury. It serves the same function,
Well, Black Widow's in the game too as an ally, so that's a big one.
Yeah, I have a feeling she's going to get her own deck when the prequel movie comes out.
Hawkeye.
Definitely.
If you have your own movie, you're going to get your own deck eventually. I'm pretty sure about that. Except for the Hulk. Poor Hulk. I'm actually going to disagree slightly there. And this gets a little bit wonky. Yes, I know, guys, we are going to get a little bit wonky. This is all we're going to talk about today. So we are going to get into the grist of this game and all the other games we're talking about. We haven't even talked about the other 2 games yet. We'll get there. I actually didn't know how I feel about, like you said before, the superhero cards are the most powerful cards. I've played, 6, 7 times. Each time I find myself relying on those superhero cards and everything else is grist for that mill. Like, especially if it's a equipment dependent character like Black Panther or Iron Man. If I'm not playing the core items, I feel like I'm wasting my time, so to speak, or I'm responding to something like immediate. But if I'm not playing, if I don't have anything immediate, I better play my support stuff or else, whatever. And is that a real decision? Like, I don't know if you guys struggled with that at all.
No, I don't struggle with that. You had asked about the card mechanism where, you discard cards to play other cards, and I would say straight out, if that's not a mechanism that people are into, walk away from this game. Because that is the game. I mean, that is a major, major piece, is what am I going to discard? What am I going to play? How do I make those decisions? And I think the other element that we've kind of talked about it almost from the solo space, but you got to remember the cooperative space. What should I play to help you? And can you help me draw extra cards? And who can give a resource? And how are we going to do this? What are you going to be going to thwart this turn? What can I attack this turn? You get to talk all that out with your own cards. Very Spirit Island-esque.
Good comparison. Yeah.
Who's going to do what and how are we going to figure all this out? You're forced to take a certain turn order, but there's that piece. You definitely mentioned the 2 characters that are most reliant on their equipment. Black Panther is number 1 reliant on his equipment, and Iron Man is number 2. So I can see it on that spot. They're a little bit more focused on that. But even still, it's which pieces am I going to put out, or how am I going to go about this? I almost think of Black Panther's equipment more of what's my goal in this scenario. So he almost is adaptable to the Ultron one. I need to get rid of those drones, so I'm going to put out the knife that just does 1 damage to everything. But there's others where I just, Rhino, I just need to clock him over the head, so I'm going to put out the claws. So I kind of like the versatility in that deck, even though, card draw can hurt you a little more on that equipment than others. But he has built-in card draw in his deck as well. So I don't struggle with that. That's the part I enjoy.
I mean, the question is not that it's... you can get the cards, I think. There's enough card draw. But like, is that boring? Are you doing the same thing every turn? Or every game that you play Black Panther? And I think you hit it where like it depends on the tactics of what the game is calling for. But I can definitely see somebody being like, oh, I'm playing Black Panther, so let me dig for my support cards, and just kind of going through the motions on that. It goes to what Steve was saying in terms of how powerful are those character cards, and do they just kind of dominate play? And I think, I don't know, like it depends. I think that we need harder villains in order to really exercise that. So it's like you might have a villain. I don't think that exists in the base game. Maybe Ultron a little bit because he's funky. Where you're really challenged to use your secondary cards and get the most out of your secondary cards. Right now, it's just like, okay, let me just play my main cards and go.
I will say there are quite a few levers to pull in this game, and I've been able to crank up the difficulty, even with like the Claw, where I haven't been able to beat him in quite some time playing solo. Because you can add those expert cards in there, and that really adds a lot to it. And even some of the modules, if you choose the wrong module, like I chose, what's Ultron's module?
So what you're talking about, so we're going to the villains, just to explain the villains really quick. So the villains are also composed of 3 different decks that you can put in. There's the main villain deck, which is like 15 cards. And there's a set of standard cards that just treachery cards that just do random stuff that's universally applicable. And then there's like a little side thing. So like you can do the Hydra, and that's like 5 cards. Or you could do, I think, there's like harder ones and easier ones depending on what challenge you have. And there's all sorts of other stuff going on there too. So what Steve is talking about is you can amp up the difficulty by amping up the boss. You can fight harder versions of their cards, and you can fight harder versions of those side things.
Under Attack is the one you're looking for.
Thank you, Under Attack. Yeah, because if you throw Under Attack with Claw, effectively it doesn't add any more enemies to the deck. And Claw on each of his stages, you have to discard cards from that deck to get an enemy.
Right.
So you have really good chances of honestly just dumping a huge portion of the deck right out the start of the gate, which means you're that much closer to getting those Horrible Acceleration tokens, which is something we haven't mentioned. Is as you go through the villain deck multiple times, you'll get these tokens. And it's basically going to ramp up the enemy's power to complete their evil schemes.
So then there's a way that you win the game, there's a way that you lose the game. You win the game by beating the boss. Reduce him to 0. No mystery there. And then, as Brent was saying before, there's these schemes that come out. So like it's a separate card, and it adds tokens. And if it adds too many tokens, if it hits thresholds, you lose. So then there's a lose condition, and then there's a win condition. And the game is all about managing the lose condition, like taking threat off when it's getting too much. And then, it also interacts with your hero card. So if you are your hero, the villain will attack you. If you flip the card and you're an alter ego, the villain will scheme. So you can't be in your alter ego form when the villain's about to win your scheme. So you really have to kind of watch that. How did you guys think of that villain construction? And I guess we can start bringing in comparisons because, designing AI is hard and it sticks out. Like, how did you guys feel about how they executed that villain turn? Is it easy? Is it fun? All that good stuff.
So actually the part that I would want to bring in here is scalability. But first I'll start with answering your question, which is, I actually like the way they pull off the villains. You get to decide, do I want the villain to scheme or attack me? So you are in control of that piece, and then you're completely out of control with the card that gets revealed and trying to figure that piece out. And so that's where the game is just, I don't know. On my turn, I don't know my best decision. Should I attack and kill this minion? Hit the villain? Should I get the villain to the next stage? Should I thwart? Am I in trouble upon that piece? I don't know. And I won't know until I get to that turn. So you don't have perfect information. So this is not a Eurogamer's game on that front.
This is not a Euro game.
I was watching a Eurogamer play today, and she was like, oh, I'm not going to thwart because I can thwart for 3 and there's only 2 tokens, right? And I want to thwart only when I can maximize. And I was like, yeah, that's full on Eurogamer. Like, you got to understand, you're going to react to these cards. And I love that piece. I know that typically I would be labeled as a Eurogamer, but in that case, I love that. I just don't know. So I've got to make a decision and go with it and roll with the punches. But the scalability piece is, it's basically perfect mathematically, because almost all the scheme cards and tokens and health and everything, the boss is 12x, where X is the number of players in the game. So that's perfect, right? It's 12 with 1 player, 24 with 2 players, 36, etc. on health, and same with tokens. Where it doesn't quite work out, the experience-wise, is drawing those cards, and especially the card called, you want deep dive, correct?
Oh yeah. Let's just go in.
You want me to go deep, right? Okay. So the card called Advance that you can draw out of the deck, which says the villain schemes again. That card is brutal in solo play.
Yeah.
So I was playing Claw today, and there was, he had to get 8 tokens on his card. I was at 1. That was basically what I could get him down to. And then he schemed for 3, and then drew the advance card and schemed for 4, and I lost. There was nothing I could do. Like, I had him completely down. So in solo play, that one card can make all the difference. Whereas the only way that would happen with 4 players is if every single player drew advance, which there aren't that many in the deck. So it's not scaled right there well. I don't think that's a big deal because it's asking for that element of randomness, but I have found solo play to be the hardest.
I agree with solo.
Because it's so swingy. Like, you could lose. Like, it's not just the scheming. It's like the villain could just pull a card that kind of locks down what you do. Let's say you have a couple of support cards out, and he pulls the thing and says, "Okay, get rid of a support." Oh, God. No. It can really get you in solo. But so let me get into because I want to do comparisons now. Because I'm a Sentinels and Multiverse fan. You can play this 1 player. In Sentinels, you have to play at least 3. I play 4. I can see people being really annoyed by that. Here, I think the best character count is 2, and the best player count is 1 to 2, depending on what that is. The more people at the table, I think you're going to get into a lot of AP because of the discarding, the way you play cards. You have to look at your whole hand. You get to draw a whole new hand every round, so you have a whole new slew of choices every single round, and you're agonizing, you're deciding, you're calculating, you're asking, and it could take a long time with 4 players. Sentinels, which I'm not going to describe Sentinels. I mean, please, we've talked about the game enough. It's play, power, draw. And it can get heady, and I'll get to that in a second. But the core of the thing is like, okay, I'm playing 1 card, I'm executing 1 power, and I'm drawing a card. And I think that lends itself better to a higher player count anyway. I don't know how you guys reacted to that.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I did find that for Champions, I played it multiple times with 4 players, and it definitely scales time-wise for a while. Time-wise, it scales quite a bit. But it did play fine, I think, otherwise. Other than the time and a lot of cards going on, we were able to cooperate a lot, and it's still fun for me. For Sentinels, I do think it does play best at those higher player counts for sure. And I'm one who doesn't like to play multiple characters if I have a choice. And unfortunately for Sentinels, I'm kind of forced to do that. It's not a big deal because, like you said, the Sentinels actions, you don't have a whole lot to do in the actions during your turn. Generally,
play power draw, you can get the T-shirt.
And then on the yeah, exactly.
So, in general, so I'm a Sentinels lover, but I will definitely kind of draw back a little bit. Brand, I know you haven't played Sentinels in a little while, and I'm guessing out of your 37 plays in 14 days, I know which one you prefer.
Yeah, no, definitely. But, to answer your question, I would tell people not to play Champions 3 and 4 players right off the bat. But I was playing this a ton on our 24-hour Extra Life event where we played midnight to midnight, and I played a lot of 3-player games, and they were all right around the hour mark. They were not brutal. 4-player will jump over that, and of course, if you're trying to introduce new people, and you have people that aren't used to card games and not going to read cards, or they're not willing to commit to playing something quickly, that'll definitely add to it. But I think it's just people need to know. And I feel like, yes, you increase the time, but one of my least favorite things when people review games is when they say, this game is great, it's quick to play, it's easy to learn, there's not a lot of decisions, you can just pop it out. Well, what if I want to play a long game with lots of hard decisions? So I think people just need to know that. And I think for me, if I was only to play Champions solo, I would, and you asked me, have I played this game out? Yeah, at 40 or 50 plays, it's definitely going to play itself out solo. But now when I start interacting with other people and they're making decisions and they built a deck that I haven't thought to build, and we're talking that out, like, ooh, that's where I want to be. In fact, that's where I am on Tuesdays now at my local store, playing with other people, because that's where I want to experience this game now. So I kind of want to play at that 3 and 4 player count with people who are, somewhat seasoned.
I feel like Champions is going to scale player count wise and experience wise, similar to Lord of the Rings Living Card Game, where you can play 1 to 2 players, and it takes a while, but it's not too bad time wise. But when we get to 3 or 4 player count, you get these epic turns and epic games going on, just because there's so much happening, so many things you have to coordinate. And I really felt like especially when I played Champions with some experienced Lord of the Rings players, we got the similar experience on that epic levelness.
Mm-hmm. So then, when it comes to the comparison, so you're having the constructed deck versus the fixed deck. And Sentinels, at this point, there's so much. There's 40, 50 heroes, and if you get the custom stuff, which I have, you get it. That's like 20, 30 more. Then it's fixed deck, and it's 40 cards. And I think I kind of prefer the fixed deck at this point, because every card kind of works. Like, every card works. There's no like some of the cards have kind of fat, especially the earlier decks in Sentinels. But when it comes to the 40 card fixed deck, I kind of know what I'm doing, and then within knowing what the deck can do, I can kind of do 2, 3, 4, 5 different things. If I'm playing what's her face, Unity with the robots, who brings out the robots, I can choose which robots I want to put out depending on what the strategy is. And you said that same exact thing for Black Panther, but I feel like Black Panther only has the 4 cards, so it's going to generally kind of play out within a much tighter space. Unity has 7 flavors of robot, and depending on what the deck gives me, depending on what's out in the field, I have just that little bit more space to go through.
I did.
Just one second. So Iron Man has his suit that he brings out. It's kind of the same suit every time. Absolute Zero is a kind of the Iron Man of Sentinels. He has to have his 2 things out, but once you're there, then it's like, okay, I can do kind of just slightly different things. I can do AoE. I can do targeted depending on what comes out. I just feel like with the fixed deck, it gave me a little bit more flexibility to kind of be awesome. So I'm sorry, I interrupted you, Steve. Go ahead.
I think it's going to be interesting in the future, because while Black Panther and Iron Man, they're always going to fetch those pieces, I strongly suspect that's not going to be true in the future, because if you read the cards, like Iron Man says, hey, look for a tech upgrade card. I fully anticipate we'll see more tech upgrade cards in the future.
Right.
And so we can really have other ways of fetching different cards that really don't align with them, but could maybe adjust their playstyle accordingly.
Sorry. I know what you're saying, Jason, and we're not making the comparison, but Ashes Rise of the Phoenixborn, I love playing that game with fixed decks. I don't want to deck build there.
Oh, believe me, we're talking about every card game. Now we're talking comparisons, bring in all the card games.
Okay. And I totally love a fixed deck, and I know what you're saying. It's just the joy of being able to take out that deck and knowing what it does. But boy, in this game, no way. 100% I want to build the deck myself. I want to know how many little lightning bolts I have in the deck. I want to know what card I'm digging for. I want to know the next step. I totally think Iron Man Protection feels completely different from Iron Man Leadership. And I am playing that differently, even though I'm going to upgrade my suit and get my card draw and get my pinging damage and my thwart. That's just like the baseline of Iron Man to me, and that second tier cards decide my playstyle. Am I the one leading the front on the attack, or am I the one that's just kind of holding back and giving card draw and things to other people? Mm-hmm. I 100% want a deck build. That is the joy of the game, because then when I go in, I know how it works. I'm not going, yeah, give me the Unity deck. I haven't played that one in 3 years. I'll just figure it out as I shuffle and go. This is my deck. I'm showing up with my Spider-Man Justice deck, and I am going to bring justice to this villain with all the web-slinging action I can.
I agree. I agree completely.
Did I sell it?
No, I mean, I don't totally get it. I mean, I guess the only thing I'll say, and this is definitely very unfair to Marvel Champions, because there's only 5, and when it compared to Sentinels, there's 55. But there are some, when you get the fixed deck, you can actually do some really weird kind of meta messing up stuff. So my favorite heroes to play in Sentinels are heroes like Setback and Guys. and heroes that are just weird and break the meta, and like, okay, I damage myself to do double damage to the boss, and I can like sacrifice myself for 50 damage to do 100 damage to the boss, which I've done. Something like completely ridiculous like that. Like I can do, like I think I've done, like I've had like a 45 damage turn with guys, and I don't think that the Marvel decks right now definitely are not constructed to do that. I wonder, given the constructed nature, and there's still a tight design space, I wonder if the decks in Marvel are going to be even capable of just silliness like that. And like, to go to your point, Steve, when I play a superhero game, that's what I want. I want that overpowered silliness that's earned. It's not just given to you, but I wonder if Marvel will get to that point.
I think you can do some weird things in Champions already. I was able to take Captain Marvel, which is a pretty big powerhouse, but turn it into just a defensive tank in that game. And it doesn't take much to do it, but like getting back to how much those aspects affect the game, that's definitely true. Now, the other game we haven't mentioned much yet in this podcast is Marvel Legendary.
There you go.
And we're talking about power levels on that one. That one is just through the roof. And I think that exceeds both these games in power levels. You can just get a ridiculous number of damage going in that game and other weird things. You can draw your whole deck. It gets really silly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, at this point, because there's so many, I mean, Legendary is not even fair, because it's like, how many sets are there, Steve?
I think they're releasing the 20th expansion soon. There's easily more than 100 heroes. So, yeah.
5 versions of Spider-Man.
And how many heroes do you play with at a time? Is it 8?
Generally only 5. It could vary based on scenario.
So then, to kind of step back and talk about, because they've compared this game to Legendary as well. So like, if you have Legendary, should you get into this? I'll hold off on my Sentinels comparison because they're so close. I'll hold off on those later. I think the Marvel comparison is easier because they're very different games. Thematically, Marvel LCG, you are Spider-Man. In Legendary, you're not any hero. Like, you're shuffling together 5 heroes. So I've heard someone describe it as, you're not the comic book hero, you're the guy reading the comic book. And it's like, okay, because I used to think, it was like, oh, this is weird, why are all the heroes running around? But like, if I think of Marvel Legendary, a game playing out, you shuffle 5 heroes together and a bunch of other cards, and you're playing Wolverine, and Nick Fury shows up, and She-Hulk shows up, and it's like they're all kind of like there. It's like, all right, that's I've read comic books like that. So
you're playing as like the X-Men team or the Avenger team, right?
Okay. Yeah, exactly. Like, so, I mean, you can definitely get that kind of more Commander-esque team vibe. So it's a different thing. Like, I think that, and especially thematically, it's different. And then in terms of the actual mechanisms, like, it's just such a different beast. Like, I mean, you're probably the one to ask, Steve. Like, is it like should this be a competition at all, Legendary or Marvel LCG, or are they just 2 completely different beasts?
From a 1,000-point perspective, they're kind of similar, but the similarities fall off pretty quickly. What I mean by that is they both have Marvel IP. You both are going against a big boss, and in Champions called the villain, in Legendary it's called the mastermind. And then you actually have schemes in both of them. So there's some similarities there, but past that point is where it falls off dramatically. Like Champions, you're doing a deck customization outside of actually playing the game. In Legendary, it's your normal deck building fare. So it does change quite a bit after that.
And which one's easier to get into?
I would say Marvel Legendary is, because you start with a basic deck, and the turn structure is pretty easy to get used to it. And as you add cards, it ramps up in difficulty as you get more accustomed to the game. The problem with Marvel Champions is, as I love the game, but if you have a new player, you're like, okay, draw your hand of cards, here's my 6 cards, and now, wait, I can discard this card for resources, but I can play this card for this thing, but which card should I get rid of? And I have to read all this text on the card. And it just takes a little bit to digest that.
Legendary is definitely more of a family-ish game, if that makes sense. Like, you can show this to a younger person or somebody who is a little bit newer to gaming. I think that Marvel LCG is more of a gamer's game. Is that fair, Brandt?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you're definitely right on. I mean, to me, Marvel Legendary is just like, oh, I'm playing the mechanisms and the combos of a deck builder, because deck builders are just awesome mechanically, right? They give you all these options for combos and customizing what I want to do and kind of reacting, and then it has Marvel on it, so it's like a no-brainer. Like, who doesn't want to slap Marvel onto a deck builder? That's so fun. It kind of reminds me of like when Imperial Assault came out, Star Wars Imperial Assault. People are like, of course I want to play Descent with Star Wars. That's amazing. But over time, there's just so much stuff, and there's a campaign, and there's this, and I've got other places to go. And that's how Marvel Legendary feels to me now. Like, that's a great game. That's awesome. If somebody wants to dust that off their shelf, we'll just have a casual afternoon, I would do it. But it makes perfect sense as a combination, but it's not really something I want to invest time in regularly.
I mean, but yeah, I think you're a gamer. Like, you're a gamer. And, like, I've seen you, like, suck people into your gamer vortex. Like, okay, play this game. Like, look at these heavy games. Come on in. And people are like, yeah. Like, I think if you're a person that's looking for that kind of more down-tuned, I want to play with my your son, and I want him to bathe in Marvel. This is not the product. Marvel Champions is not the product I'm going to give to him. I'd be more likely to give him Legendary. It's very funny. I really do not like Legendary whatsoever. I'm trying to just speak the virtues.
The one thing that Marvel Legendary does really well, I think, that separates itself from Champions and Sentinels is the plots or the evil plans. Because both in Champions and Sentinels, the evil plan is really integrated with the villain or mastermind or the big bad, right? And you can't really separate that out very well. I mean, you've got modules in Champions that tweaks it a little bit, but they still have the same schemes they're going for. Yeah, but Legendary, you can choose any scheme you want to pair with any mastermind. And the nice thing about that is I've gone to see super moves with people and like, hey, cool, hey, do you want to play a game? Yeah, I will set up Legendary with the same heroes, same villains, same scheme, same everything, so that we can relive those cinematic moments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to come off sounding snobbish or elitist in any way, shape, or form, because I am not that.
You're the man of the people.
And 100%. Like, yes, if you're playing with kids, you're drawing people in. I love that story. Hey, we just went and saw a Marvel movie. Check out this game. Absolutely. I would not be like, here, take my well-tuned Marvel's Champion deck and see if you can play it as well as I do. I mean, that's just rude to do to people in my mind. So Legendary's absolutely great on that front.
Right.
For sure.
So then let us get back into the comparison of Marvel and Sentinels directly. So why do people... So Sentinels is very big. It was at one time, it was one of the only superhero card games. So it was very popular, it got in there early. And people stopped playing it. Why? Really one reason, which is the math. There's a lot of math in the game. The math plays out in a number of ways. So in Sentinels, you have your one power, and then your many cards will buff your one power. So it +1 to your energy, +1 to your attack, +2 to this, -1 because the boss has damage reduction. So you're doing plus, minus, and asking other people, hey, do you have a plus for me? You got a plus for which is weird to ask for because you're basically asking for more math. And then on the villain side, you'll have this thing where the villain will attack the highest hit point guy. So then everybody's like, okay, who's highest? Who's second highest? Who's the lowest? And it changes every turn. And there's always that moment, which is pretty funny, of like, okay, everybody add their numbers. How many tokens do you have? And it creates all this admin. So how Marvel got around that, I feel like Marvel is just as complex of a game of the table, if not more so a little bit than Sentinels. But how Marvel gets around that is every card is fire and forget. You play your Black Panther thing, your claws, you do 2 damage, you're done. Another card, you do 1 damage, you're done. You throw it once, you're done. And it's just like you do, it's the same amount of load, but you're not adding it. You're just like boom, 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 fire, forget, which I didn't know what I was missing, if that makes sense. I don't know if, Brad, did you kind of get that same sense of the game is very similar to me. Like, once the cards are out of your hand, then it gives me that same Sentinels vibe, but only without all the admin. They've kind of rejiggered it. So I don't know how you experienced that, or if you even thought of that, because I know you haven't played Sentinels in a long time.
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely remember that, like, one of the big things with Sentinels is that people would say it's fiddly, right? So a lot of people liked the app because it got rid of remembering, oh, I do +1 fire or heat damage, fire damage, whatever it is, but, oh, the environment says everything is -1 damage right now, and, oh, don't forget, I buffed you for this turn only, don't forget to do this.
Right.
And so you had to remember, it's like you had, like, upkeep in your head, and when you said that about Marvel Champions, you're dead on. That fire and forget is, just exhaust this card and it's done.
Right.
It's done what it said it would do. So it keeps that math, to a limit. The other thing I remember with Sentinels was not necessarily knowing that I was going to pull off a combo. Is Sub-Zero, is that the one that you were talking about who builds the suit?
Absolute Zero.
Absolute. I knew Sub-Zero was the Mortal Kombat guy, so.
Keeping all these IP straight is very hard.
Yeah, so Absolute Zero. I remember that one being like the one that I wanted it to work out and playing these like 5 and 6 player games and just couldn't get my suit up and running before either they had obliterated the boss or it had obliterated us. Mm-hmm. So I remember that timing factor kind of feeling a little frustrating at times. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right with Marvel Champions is that they built it in so you're going to use all your cards and you're done.
Yeah. You tap. I really do feel like, especially with the status debuffs, because you can actually put status effects on your shelf from the bosses. They learned that people don't like tracking a lot.
Yeah.
It's like tough is fire it. It absorbs 1 instance of damage and it's gone. It isn't like DR1 where it's like, okay, every time you attack this thing, -1. I feel like on the admin end, Marvel Champions kind of comes out ahead, definitely. Does that mean I like Marvel Champions better? It takes out the most frustrating part of Sentinels and just gives you the same strategic stuff, but in a much more admin light package. I don't know, man. I got a lot of Sentinels. I don't know. So there's something. There's something missing in my experience of Marvel that I get. There's like a hominess. Like you could just tell there's so much love kind of baked into the characters. It's Christopher Bedell and his cohort Adam Robertaro, and they made the whole universe and they made it from whole cloth. And I know I'm being sappy right now, but I definitely got the sense that there was just so much love put into each of the decks that I've kind of acquired some of that. Not that I know what Legacy's backstory is, I have no idea, or Night Mist or whatever it is, but I'm so attached to the way the different decks work. I'm so attached to the fixed deck stuff. I still think the fixed decks is, for me, better than the constructed deck. It's so similar. I can't tell, but I don't know if I've seen enough from Marvel yet to make me tempted to replace Sentinels. I'm not even tempted. I'm keeping Sentinels, but I don't know how you guys feel.
Are you, just out of curiosity, are you into the Marvel lore at all? Or
dude, super. Oh, yeah. Cool. I was a Marvel kid growing up. My Silver Surfer was the Silver Surfer comic was my favorite. Thanos was my absolute favorite villain of all time, or hero. Like he would sometimes team up with the heroes against some other thing. I grew up with Marvel. I grew up with X-Men, and I guess maybe that's part of it. I grew up with X-Men, not the Avengers. The Avengers weren't cool until Robert Downey showed up. The Avengers before them were completely lame. So I didn't grow up with Thor and Iron Man and all this other stupid stuff. So maybe if I saw some X-Men decks, I'd feel differently, because those are my guys and gals. But still,
I'm with you on that one.
they were the first ones that Marvel sold when they got bankrupt, because they were the cool ones. Spider-Man, X-Men, those were the cool ones. Avengers, they were like, nobody's buying this. And they had to be made cool. So I'm still kind of getting used to the idea. I don't know, man. I mean, there's certain things, things about Sentinels that, especially, we haven't even talked about this, the environment deck can be a problematic because there's a lot of tracking in that one too. But I kind of miss that in Marvel Champions. I feel like I'm fighting the same boss and they're kind of in the same place at nowhere. I'm basically fighting them in the middle of nowhere. And I know the scheme cards come out, but I don't think it does enough to kind of give complete the picture for me.
It's interesting because as I read the rules reference, they do list environment cards out as a card type, but unfortunately we only see one example of that, and that's with Ultron's deck. And all it does is say, hey, here's the drones and here's how they buff them.
Yeah,
but that leads me to believe that maybe they left the design space open to add these environments later on, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I don't think you should sell your Sentinel stuff at all. Anybody that owns Sentinels and loves it and plays it, when you asked me to be on the podcast, I was seeking out a copy of Sentinels. We have a store copy, and I couldn't find it.
Right.
So it's somewhere else at the moment. I'm not worried about that. But I wanted to play Sentinels again. So when I think about Sentinels, it's a great game. I definitely want to play it again in terms of all that. I think for me, ironically, it's theme. I mean, I want to be a Marvel superhero,
right.
not a generic superhero. I like that idea. I attach to those characters so much more. And obviously, we disagree on the deck building. That's the part where I'm super excited in terms of all that. And the design space, and not only just what it seems like Marvel could do, Marvel Champions, but what we've seen Arkham do and what we've seen Lord of the Rings do. They have turned some villain decks, which are quests, and I don't know what they're called in Arkham. Mm-hmm. But they have really created some unique mechanisms. They've done Lord of the Rings one I know better. They've done ones where you're trying to solve a mystery. They've done ones where it's all just like travel through locations and quest. They've done things with stages. Steve hit on a really big thing when he mentioned with superheroes the idea of having like bystanders or innocents, and there's none of that in Marvel Champions, but the space is absolutely there, to create a villain who there's just a timer token and the bridge is going to explode in 3 turns and you can't stop it from exploding. And now, what do you do with the fallout of the fact that the bridge exploded? We're going to see stuff like that. And I think that's going to bring in more of that environment and more of that theme. I'm not sure why they went low on the theme in comparison to Lord of the Rings and Arkham, because this is the lowest theme of all of them. But I think it was kind of what we were talking about with Legendary. They're trying to make an entry point. They want people who are into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, who are downloading the Disney Plus app at 9 a.m. on Tuesday morning to jump on this game. And they want, it's a gamer's game, like you said, but they want that barrier to be low. So they made the villains feel very just, they're going to attack you and put out some minions and not a lot. And then they're going to put that design space in. I can only imagine.
So, okay, and so this is my kind of, the other reason why I'm like, okay, so it's an 8 out of 10 game for me. I think this game is really, really solid. So what is going to give me pause over here is the story elements. I just don't feel like that there's going to be a robust sense of story. I think they have other games for that. I think Arkham is their game for story. This game is characters. And really, if you think about the MCU and why the movies are so good, it's because they're good set pieces for the characters. They're not great movies. Avengers Endgame, I know, hot take right now, was not a great movie. People don't remember the plot. It doesn't make sense that Thanos is he's going to kill half the people because there's no resources. Well, why don't you just make more resources? You have the power of a god. No, he's a bad guy. That's what it comes down to. The plot needs him to do something, so he's going to do it. And the stupid timey-wimey time travel thing, they never really explained it. They even made fun of it in the movie itself. And they just hand-waved it and did stuff. Marvel... I know I'm going on a little bit of a rant right now. Marvel doesn't emphasize story that much. They just don't. In the comic books, there's very few storylines that emerge. You get Dark Phoenix, you get Infinity Gauntlet. But for the most part, you can't remember the stories. You remember the characters. And this game is giving you characters. And I don't know, the base game gives you no story. It gives you one line of text. And to put a finer point on it, and I know this is I'm going 50 minutes into the podcast and giving my biggest criticisms. And I got this from Colin on the One Stop Coop Shop Slack, that even the way that the villain progresses scheme-wise is a little bit anti-story, in the sense that it's the villain hitting scheme thresholds and unlocking more schemes. So they can fish more schemes out of their personal deck. Even that is kind of determined by the villain. The villain has to kind of add up scheme on its own. When you were playing Brandt and you were playing your thwarty Iron Man character, you basically lock the villain in place and no development happens. It's just there and there to be beat up and gone. And in all these other games, story progresses. The game state changes. In Lord of the Rings, you progress down a story path and the whole game state changes. In Marvel, you can lock the game state down, and you probably should, and just do the beat up a boss thing. And it felt a little bit soulless, to be honest with you. Like, I guess that's maybe my biggest hesitation with Marvel compared to Sentinels. Sentinels, the boss flips and you get different stages and everything. They do enough to kind of unlock that stuff. Marvel, it feels like I'm just playing a character. There's no sense of story that I'm getting whatsoever.
It's interesting. I would actually disagree with that a bit. I agree with the lack of story for sure. There's something Colin and I also talked about and agree with, that, this Champions, this core box at least, it has story with how you can play each of these villains in order, and it has some sense of cohesive story in there, but it's really not good. It's not really there at all. And from that same aspect, for Sentinels, I don't get any story for that at all. I mean, there's some backstory to them, but it's kind of the same thing. It's there, but it's not really very strong.
Well, what I'm saying about story, it's not necessarily like, fluff text and immersion, but like the game state changes. And that's how thematic games deliver story, is by the game state changing. So like when you beat a certain boss and you flip him and everything kind of gets mixed up, or certain bosses will kind of mess with the environment deck and, make the environment kind of attack you and do stuff. Like they're messing with the game state enough, and it's changeable and fungible, and it just makes you feel like you're part of a more dynamic space. And I can fill in story from there. Like I don't need the game to give me a story. I could fill it in as long as there's enough happening. In Marvel, I feel like the bosses are just going to do the boss are going to boss, and I can even stop the boss from progressing if I shut his threat down. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, from the scheme side, I agree with that. I think the board state does change pretty significantly in both Sentinels and Champions, though. Like, you can have some really bad flips of cards, and I've been talking this with another guy in our Slack, Terrence, and he's been trying to beat Claw with the Hydra set in it, and there's so much surge in it where you can have like 5 cards get flipped in a turn, and this is just solo. And so that, to me, is a really good stance on how much of the game can flow if you set up right. And it really has a lot to do with what leverage you pull and what's in the core box, but I think that's going to change, and we'll see it develop in the future for sure.
So I imagine, Brandt, that you are on the complete other side of that there is room in the design for story. We just have to wait for it.
So it's really important to know that I'm mechanisms first. I'm playing games for their mechanisms, for the combos, for the the strategy of it all. And I definitely agree that the story is pretty thin on all that front, and to some extent I don't care, but I do think they're going to go somewhere. It's interesting to me, like I was saying, the math is almost perfect in the scalability, but it is funny. Like I played ENGN, the New Age, and Gloomhaven, and they all had these dials, right? Dials or health tracker marker, and you kill something because its health gets to 0. But we don't, they almost took the simplest route. Like, okay, there's, 14 times 3, there's 42 health on the villain. Now hit him 2 at a time until he's dead. And it would be interesting to do something where it was like, no, you can't hit the villain. You have to try to slow down this. And when you stop this, then you can shove the wrench in the gun and turn it backwards and it explodes on the villain. And now his bubble goes down. And now that you're through the bubble, you can throw him to the ground. And then you have to ice him. And you have to find this character who can, get the axe. And they should have gone for the head or whatever. Kind of element. And they didn't do that. Like they went for the pure mathematical route. And I'm okay with that, like I said, because I'm playing a game. To me, if a game gets so story-oriented, I'd rather be watching the movie or reading the book. Sure. The playing of the game is for me to get involved and do those mechanics, but I can't take that away from other people. Absolutely people want that and love that. I discovered for Arkham, the reason I didn't get into it was because the story ended no matter what, and I didn't know if what I did was good or bad or what story I wanted. And I thought that I liked the idea that it progressed, but I 100% liked the idea of Lord of the Rings, that I played that quest until I felt like, yes, that's the ending I want.
No, definitely true.
So, yeah.
And I'll clarify, I don't want just narratives. I want... That's why I'm talking about story in terms of the game state kind of changing, like the actual mechanisms responding and pointing my imagination. I talk a lot about this. Theme is a magic trick, and the game has to point me in directions. Like, don't look at the math, look at what I'm trying to do. And, I think that Sentinels just does a little bit more, and there's a little bit more, especially in terms of the interaction of the environment and the villain and all the different elements. I think Marvel just, I can get into my hero, that's what I can do. I can get into my hero, and I can get into Iron Man, and I can get into Wakanda Forever. I can get into all that, but the rest of it just doesn't do it for me yet. But I'm open to it. Like, I'm not gonna stop playing Marvel, but that was just like my biggest kind of criticism from and I am a theme first gamer. Like, I know you talk about mechanism. I'm theme first. I'm not theme only, but I definitely am theme first. Oh my god!
It'll be interesting to see when. Sorry.
Go ahead.
It'll be interesting to see when the campaign play gets released for Marvel Champions. We know it's coming, but we know nothing about it. So I think that's going to really change a lot of people's opinions, for better or for worse, when we find out what that is. I know in the upcoming expansions, they're going to be linked missions together, and we really don't know how that's going to work, but yeah, we'll see what happens.
I think we know exactly how it's going to work. It's going to be one boss, then the next boss, then the next boss.
I am intrigued, though. They're splitting. They're selling the hero, so we're going to get, I can't remember if it's Green Goblin and then Captain America, but right. You're going to get just a villain and then just a hero, and they didn't do that in Arkham and Lord of the Rings. You kind of got both in one, and I'm more interested in the villain. I want to get a new scenario to fight in terms of that, and that'll be interesting having those like kind of offset each other as opposed to getting both at once.
Right. So we have gone an hour talking about, we've gotten Sentinels, we've gotten Legendary, we've weaved in Arkham Horror, Lord of the Rings, Ashes even, which Brandt completely took me by surprise with that one. A whole bunch of different games. I really hope that you listeners out there have gotten a good sense. I think we all are very positive on Marvel. Like, I know I kind of came in with a little bit of negativity at the end. I like this game, and I'm going to play it again and again. And I've played it in therapy, and it was actually a joy to play it in therapy with a kid who I laid out the decks, and he's like, "Oh wow, I can play Spider-Man." It's like, okay, here you go, Spider-Man. And he was just web slinging and like having fun. And to be able to give that gift to somebody is amazing. And I think that there's so much here. I'm not replacing Sentinels. I think Sentinels still has the edge for me because there's so much content for it. It still just gives me a little bit something different. But this is a really, really solid package. And I mean, just you're hearing a lot of positivity. So maybe you guys, unless you guys have some other things that we missed, maybe kind of give some final thoughts and, kind of wrap up what we're talking about. Go ahead, I'll let Brandt go first.
Yeah, so it's a Fantasy Flight card game, right? We have to see where it goes. We have to see what Fantasy Flight does with it. There's no doubt they have unending places that they can go, but what will the timing of that be? Where will the hype be around this game a year from now? Because we look at things from the past. But I mean, as far as I know, Arkham and Lord of the Rings are two of their best-selling properties,
still going,
which is crazy. And so, I have high hopes. This is why I've kind of started a night to get people out there to play it so we could kind of build that up. Because I think that'll be really exciting and to see where it goes. I think the deck building is there, the prospect for all that. So for me right now, it's a 9 on an out of 10 scale, but the potential to get up to a 9.5 or 10 are absolutely there with the new villains, the new heroes, and the scenario pack. I am very much enjoying the game. I can't imagine playing 37 plays and hating the game.
Yeah, right.
I would be some kind of masochist, especially with all the games on my review pile that I need to review. So it's a great game. I'm excited to see where it goes and excited to play it with more people.
How about you, Steve?
Yeah, Marvel Champions is totally in my wheelhouse for the type of games I like. I mean, my most played game is Lord of the Rings, living card game with like 300 plays, and Legendary is my second most played game with like 100 plus plays. And so, like, this is like almost a mismatch of both of those in some weird way. So, yeah, totally my wheelhouse. Now, with the core set out, I think they did a really good job learning some mistakes they did with the other cooperative LCG core boxes, but it still needs more to really help evaluate. There's some slight issues I have with it, but honestly, I really, really like it a lot. And I'm really excited to see where it goes. So we'll, like I said before, there's a lot of potentials, and I know based upon Arkham and Lord of the Rings, like, for Pete's sake, they had a whole cycle of just sailing in Lord of the Rings. I never thought we'd have, like, naval battles in Lord of the Rings.
Right.
And so just that concept alone, so what they did with that game and what they could do with Marvel Champions, like, I want to have an epic battle where we, like, have 12 people at the table in epic play, take it down like Galactus or Fing Fang Foom. So, yeah, if something like that comes down the pipes, I'm going to be just head over heels with this game.
If they put in Galactus and it is better than Oblivion, which Oblivion was terrible. That was just, it's unplayable. I'm never going to play a game like that again in Sentinels. But if they pull off Galactus, then it will pull ahead of Sentinels for me.
Do it, Fantasy Flight. Make Jason eat his words.
I love Galactus. That is such a cool villain, such a cool concept. Anyway, so yeah, I'm positive on it, 8 out of 10. Like I said, it's not going to replace Sentinels for me yet, but I'm open to it. I recognize what Marvel's doing. I think Sentinels does enough differently in terms of the villain environment mixing, in terms of preferring fixed deck to the deck construction, weirdo heroes. There's just like a lot there, and like just like a whole package of theme and like lovingly crafted heroes. All that puts Sentinels just a little bit ahead for me, and I don't mind the tracking. I love how Marvel solved the tracking, but I don't mind the tracking in Sentinels either. So I'm kind of used to it. Steve, you've played all of these games. Is Lord of the Rings still the leader of the pack there, or are other games kind of jockeying for it?
Are you talking about the co-op LCGs?
Like all these like card games in general, like even Legendary or throwing Aeons in, all the good stuff. What leads the pack for you?
Of these games we've talked about, currently Lord of the Rings still holds firm.
Right.
But I think Marvel Champions is going to surpass it. And it's only because I see a few pitfalls with Champions. Nothing major. But I really need more to play with. Like in Lord of the Rings, I like making weird decks. I like taking a concept that shouldn't work and making it work. And I don't have the tools because the card pool is so small in Champions, so I cannot do that yet. But I fully anticipate I will, and when we get that level, I anticipate Champions to supersede or exceed my love of Lord of the Rings.
All right, so that was our mega review of Marvel Champions LCG, Sentinels of the Multiverse, Marvel Legendary, and many, many other card games. Gentlemen, thank you so much for hopping on. Brandt, where can the people find you?
Yeah, I do a podcast on the Dice Tower Network. It's the Portal Gaming Podcast, and it's a podcast about a store in Manchester, Connecticut, which is called The Portal. And so you can hear myself and Kathy and Brian, as well as a host of other guest appearances, talking really about games, but about how games and retail and in stores and stuff like that. So check us out.
Get me back on the show. You've been on my show way more than I've been on yours. Get me on there.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right, Steve, where can the people find you?
Yeah, so I'm on the One Stop Coop Shop group, I guess we'll say. We do a YouTube channel and a podcast. I primarily focus on the podcast side, but I do some YouTube channels or YouTube videos here and there. But check us out there.
All right. You can check us out, ENGN_podcast on Twitter, Every Night's Game Night Facebook group, everynightsgamenight.com. Please do not be strangers. As you saw with last episode and a couple episodes coming up, I'm so into listener feedback. If you suggest it, I'm going to make room for it, as long as it is something to do with co-ops and solo and all that good stuff. Next week is our mega episode of the year, Top 100 Solo Commentary. Go ahead and go over to the One Player Guild on BGG. That list is unfolding as we release the episode. The bottom, the top 200 is being featured this year, and you should be getting up to game 100, and then the next week and the week after, we're going to get the top 100 solo games. Looking forward to that. So much coming your way. So on behalf of me, of Steve, and of Brandt, go ahead and grab a game off of that shelf, and let's make every night a game night.